Sheikh Nawawi, actually, this reminds me of another question that I had, slightly on a different topic, but still to do with disagreeing or difference of opinion. In society today, what we're seeing is we're very critical of everyone and everything, whether that's our teachers, our leaders, our politicians, each other. Everyone's criticizing everyone. Um, to some degree, if even if you look at criticism of our leaders, and obviously they're going to have mistakes, they're going to have human fallibilities. We're not going to ever get like a perfect leader. Uh, what is the proper etiquette to actually disagree with leaders where disagreement is due, criticize them where criticism is due, but not overstep the boundaries? Because apart from anything else, I mean, obviously, that's going to we're going by doing that we're going to be answerable to Allah Ta'ala for slandering, but also it's like a breakdown of society if we're just going to criticize everyone and everything without kind of any limits.
Look, I think I always like to, I think Islam teaches us to differentiate between constructive criticism and destructive criticism. Constructive criticism, a criticism for the sake of Allah, does not bear grudges, hate, verbal violence, slander, etc. It's objective, it's to the point, and we find excuses for the people, even when we disagree with them. Destructive criticism is basically the criticism that's based on a dunya-based benefit, and therefore it has to get dirty and nasty and personal and character assassination, etc. Now, it's important to understand that none is infallible after the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone is fallible. In fact, we have things that in the books of Sirah, that there's no authentic evidence to it that I know. But allegedly, Umar radiallahu anhu used to say when he would make a fatwa different than the year before, they would tell him, but you made different fatwa. You gave a different view last year. What happened? He said, that's based on what I knew, and this is based on what I know.
Wow.
First of all, scholarship means you change. I mean, I'm sorry, because scholarship means you're continuously learning. And that means it's difficult to have, you have to change. If you asked me 20 years ago about my view on some of the ahadith, I've changed some of them for sure, based on my scholarship. That's based on what I knew, and this is based on what I know. But the Prophet ﷺ, and before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed us that the validation and the standard and the role model is not many, is one. The Prophet ﷺ. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. The teachers and the figures and the scholars and the preachers and the activists and the wannabes and the students and everyone, they're not standards in and of themselves. The righteous teacher is the one that does not stand between the student and the Prophet ﷺ, but stands behind the student and points them to the way of the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ. Because the standardization is one. We all make mistakes. No one is perfect here. We're perfect in our imperfection. The problem is obviously with critiquing today, or destructive criticism, or its abuse in a sense. So all that is few things. Number one, the preacher's world that we live in today, meaning we don't, in my view, again, and that includes myself, we don't live in a scholar's world today. Scholars today, in my view, are maybe handful. But the preachers that laymen call scholars are the ones. And preachers usually, they're needed, they're important, but they're not scholars. When you say a scholar, to me, it means a scholar in a field. For example, if I was to tell you something about medicine, my background, Uh, when you tell me that's a physician, the first thing I ask you, what kind? You tell me he knows every medicine. I start thinking, I don't know. I don't think so. Are you a nephrologist or a cardiologist or a neurologist? What are you? You tell me you know all of them? I don't think so. And that's just being a practitioner. That's not being a scholar of that field. And the same thing at least applies to our Islamic studies. So that means a scholar means actually a master of one field. They argued with Imam al-Suyuti, who died the year 9/11, of him claiming scholarship in linguistics and tafsir, exegesis. And today you got people, I mean, we imply that we know everything, and there's no such thing. It's really a preacher's world who basically know bits and pieces, and they dish to the masses. They're lecturers, they're motivational speakers, they're self-improvement coaches that use Islamic ethos for it. They're political activists, maybe social political activists, maybe religious social political activists. But scholarship is very rare, in my view, today, meaning a scholar in tafsir who understands the science and contributed to it in a way that's innovative, meaning he understands not just the content of exegesis, not just the context, not just the application, but at the level of innovation. And I don't mean innovation here in a bad sense, in a positive contribution. Same thing for fiqh, same thing for usul, same thing for ilm al-hadith, same thing for tazkiyah, same thing for linguistics. I think those are very, very few. So the reason for that is, again, the superficial level of knowledge that exists, and which is masqueraded usually by activists or preachers or et cetera, or influencers today. The second is the decline in, like the Prophet ﷺ said, the hadith that we quoted, the first 3 centuries, the Prophet ﷺ praised them. The reason of his praise was because their testimony was righteous, mostly. They observed Allah in their testimony. Testimony is your opinion of others, your view of you witnessing. And obviously the decay we have in value system today is evident. And because we've changed the deen from I don't want to use the word spiritual, because the word spiritual is a Western term that I don't know what it means. I'm going to use the word tazkiyah, ihsan, iman, Islam. Because you bring the word spiritual and you start talking about all kinds of nonsense and sense. So you know what? I don't know what that means. Let me use Quranic and prophetic terms. Iman, Islam, ihsan. Within that realm, we have decayed a lot in value system, and we've reduced that realm of Iman, Islam, and Ihsan from a wholesome approach to a very ritualistic approach. In fact, even that, we've changed it now in the recent few years to punchlines, to buzzwords, to memorize the information with no academic or positive academic contribution to the field. So that's part of why it is, in addition to the open platform today, meaning you have keyboard warriors, you have people who can masquerade under many things and many names, or hide under many things. So that openness gives people the opportunity to settle their personal scores with whoever they want to.